Today we got a new router from Asus. This is yet another gaming router which is, well, looking insane and kind of has insane specs. This is an ROG Rapture BE19000. 19,000 stands for 19,000 megabits per second of combined Wi-Fi connection speed. That's quite a lot for a router, and to be honest, probably don't need it, but Asus wants to push the boundaries and maybe you should utilize it. This is the end of 2025, and of course it has to have an NPU and AI functionality, but more on that a bit later on. Let's open it up and see what we've got inside. Wow, that's an interesting way of folding it. Hey, that's cool. Here's some stickers, a little introduction notice. These are empty inside. Oh, that's a shame. I thought it was going to have some other tools inside. I've got to say, the unboxing experience is quite nice. This is big and heavy, but it does feel a little plasticky. Suppose from afar, maybe it doesn't look as bad, but it does feel a bit flimsy. These antennas really remind me of like mid-90s Transformer robots that you get as toys. Very reminiscent of that mechanically and like the actual plastic feel of it. I don't know how I feel about that. This is a very expensive router. This is, I believe, $800 US in its retail price. I wish it was a little bit more fancy looking. But hey, you got 8 antennas. That's an insane amount. You just kind of open all up. Once you open them up, you got this ridiculous coverage. So much so that you actually have a little handle you can use. I can't see any mounting that you could do to the wall, unless it comes with a bracket, but I don't see any brackets here. So this really is designed to stand or sit on your desk or on a cupboard somewhere. We have a little status lights for all your, your LAN, your WAN, your WPS, and basically all the different frequencies. Since this is a Wi-Fi 7 router, you probably will be starting to utilize the 6 gigahertz range quite a lot. You've got a WPS button and an LED button. So this will be to basically turn off your lights, and WPS if you want to link somebody up quickly. I do like this see-through aesthetic for this area, and I wonder if it's going to have nice lighting for that. So we'll check that out a bit later on. For this side, we have a power connector. So for DC in, a power plug, and 2 USBs. USB 2.0 and USB 3.0. Actually, this one's USB 3.2 Gen 1. I wish for a device of this size there were more USBs, and there's a good reason for that. I'll share a bit later on. On the network side, we have, this is a 10 gig, 2.5 gig each, and then we have a final 1 gig port right here. You can actually have your 2.5 gig or 10 gig ports in a WAN configuration. So if you have a 2.5 gig or a 10 gig WAN connection to your house, you can plug them in. Actually, this particular device supports dual WAN if you really wanted to. So if you have a failovers, you could do that. Alternatively, you can actually link up 2 of these 10 gig ports into aggregation and make it into a 20 gigabyte link. But for that, you need to make sure that your switch supports that functionality. Otherwise, you're going to have 20 on this side, but if the switch only supports 10, you're kind of limited. Accessories-wise, we have our little power supply, and it's one of those adjustable ones, so you can put different heads on. So you have a little adapter thing, slot it in, you're good to go. And if you want to push it off, you push down, and it comes off. So you kind of push down on this little notch. Then we have a network cable, and basically just some documentation to go with it. Quick setup guide, some information, the little information stickers, and this is important. So you have your Wi-Fi connection, password, and local login. This is really important. I can't stress this enough. Take this, log in, and change it to really good password as long as you can and as complicated as you can, because ultimately this is your biggest weakness within your system. So ensure to fix this and then start using the system after that. So what I want to do now is I want to plug everything in and I want to have a look how it looks. Boom. It has a little bit of a glow inside here. That's kind of cool. Let it fully load and see what we've got. By the way, this is a pre-production unit. So firmware, features, and any performance can still change before launch. Because of that, I'm not going to run or publish any benchmarks yet, as any numbers now could be misleading. In this part of the video, I will focus on software, features, and overall experience instead. So once you've logged in, you can literally start setting up. So you can literally create a network. As I said, change your password. I'm going to leave it default for now, so I have it on record. So you can set up your 10 gig connection, 2.5 gig. It even has ability to set up for your 4G and 5G, which is pretty cool. It even has IoT network. So it has multiple SSIDs that could be set up. You can connect your internet connection to it, and then you are in the dashboard. And as you can see in here, it already has the ability to look at the DNS benchmark and show all kinds of stats, from general CPU and RAM stats to the Ethernet port that is being used for WAN. Down below here, we have a bit of traffic monitor to show how the connected devices are using data. And further down, we have the Wi-Fi Insight. The Wi-Fi Insight only works on 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz range. As you can see, we have a pretty congested network on 2.4 GHz. And that makes sense because we live where there's a lot of different flats. 5 GHz is not too bad. And unfortunately, obviously, we can't really see anything for the 6. If you've previously used ASUS routers, then you'll know that they have a number of features, but I don't think you've ever seen this many. Let's just go through. So we have the AI mesh, should you want to mesh multiple of these devices or other compatible devices together. Then we have ability to view our clients. And I really like this because you get a lot of details out, including what kind of Wi-Fi signal they're using, as well as their MAC addresses and general data that they use. And you can break it down so you can have all devices, wireless or wired, should you have any device connected directly to it. And then if you did have, you can also filter down by your mesh nodes as well, if you had multiple different meshed devices. Further down, we have the adaptive QoE. And here you can set your controls based on what you actually want to do. You can have it balanced, gaming, streaming, working from home. So it basically just changes optimization for your network and what you should prioritize. And you can also enable bandwidth limiting here, should you need it. But if you're getting a router like this, you probably don't want to bandwidth limit anything because, well, it's got an insane amount of bandwidth that you can handle anyway. Networking wise, you see all your networking details here. Right now, we have all three of our main networks connected up to the same SSID. What you could actually do is break it out. Rather than having three of the same SSID with three different frequencies, you can actually set it up as a guest portal, for example, where users need to log in and then they need to kind of go through the terms. Probably not something you do for home, but if you had this in like an office environment, you could use that. You can have your, creating a guest network with actually kind of mean but funny way of setting up a one-time access where they can only use it for 2 hours and then you have to reconfigure again. Again, you have a lot of different features here. Here, you might want to enable bandwidth limiting if you wanted to. And also you can have it as a subnet or enabling AdGuard as well. So loads of features. This actually supports VLANs, and I'll show you that a bit later on. But even without needing to set up VLANs, you can create yourself an IoT network, which I would 100% recommend doing. What you can do then is add all your less safe devices, let's say your cameras, your smart home switches, your lights, which are more prone to get hacked by a third party than any other device. So if somebody did, the worst they can do then is just control your home assistant or home devices rather than control and get into your main PCs and main network. So separating it out is a good thing to do. And then you can also separate your kids' network. And here you can always enable like schedules, so they can't actually use their internet after a certain amount of time. You can even set up yourself a VPN network. This would be specific for setting up your VPN clients that will be used. So for example, you can create a network that is just called, let's say, VPN1. Once you connect to that, it will route all traffic through your VPN client. Let's say you want to set up something like a VPN via Surfshark or NordVPN to route all your traffic through. Many people might be using this for something like Linux ISO downloads. You could easily do this and then connect your server to use that particular VPN connection or via Wi-Fi, which is convenient and easy just to manage all your traffic through that way. Or as an example, if you're living in a region where you can't access, for example, US Netflix, what you want to do is create, let's say, a NordVPN which connects to a US region, and then connect your TV to that Wi-Fi network. So your traffic is always routed, therefore you don't need to mess around at all. It's very, very convenient for that kind of purpose. In terms of network, there's other features we have here too. You can also set up your gaming network, which will prioritize traffic over others. And again, here you you can enable features that will just hopefully improve your ping status as well. As you can see here, you can use different DNS servers to just speed things up. In this example, the difference from the fastest to the slowest is not drastic, but depending on your region, this might be very, very effective. Generally speaking, I'd recommend using wired network rather than wireless for gaming. But look, if you're gaming on your phone or on your tablet, this might be the only option to speed this up. Further down, as already shown, you have a VPN. So for the VPN, you have ability to connect to the device and connect via device out. So there's actually different features you can set them up. And there's definitely plenty of features you can choose from. Then you have your detailed traffic analyzer, so you can actually enable and track all the traffic through your devices, what is being used for, where people are browsing to, and so on. So it's actually very, very powerful. This is very useful for managing and troubleshooting your devices and also controlling what your family is involved in and what they do. Then you have a lot of the AI protection features. If you're looking for additional features such as ad blocking, malicious site blocking, you should really dig deeper and research this further to see if that's something you need. Or alternatively, you could use something like Parental, which brings us to the next bit, which is the AI board. AI board has abilities to set up Docker containers, and that could be anything from initially setting up the Portainer, which I've already enabled. So you can literally open up here. I've set it up already, and it's as simple as just installing, waiting for it to install, and you're ready to go. So in here, I can actually manage my containers. So my applications, and you can actually install more, depending on what you're looking to do. So I have 4 images here. So I have Frigate, Sim, Home Assistant, and Portainer in here. So if I go back in here, so you can actually see, I've actually installed our Home Assistant already. So you literally can open it up, log into it, and you can run your Home Assistant straight from the router. You can set it up here and control it fully from on the device itself, therefore not needing to install a separate mini PC. And then in the same way, with a little bit of troubleshooting and working around it, what you can do is install Pi-hole on here as well and route all your DNS traffic through it, which will be very, very powerful. This is, I think, that's one of the advantages of this particular unit. It has enough processing power as a standalone unit to provide other features for your network other than just being a generic router. Then you have your general parental controls. Also, you need to enable them. You have ability to filter by devices, by particular web applications. You have your time scheduling and an ad guard within here as well. And you will need to have an account for AdGuard itself. For game acceleration, these are ASUS-specific features where it depends which region you are currently in and how much performance you're going to get out of it. In some cases, you create an account and set up some of the features that they use. Some of them are paid for, some of them are free, but I really recommend digging deeper into that if that's something you are actually interested in. And then we have another traffic monitor here. So this one's specific to which ports are being used to what capacity, whether it's ports or different frequencies. So as you can see here, there's very little traffic right now because there's not that many devices connected to the device. And lastly, we have our settings page. And this is actually kind of impressive. Here we have our wireless networks. So you got the granular detail, what you want to do with them. You go all the way to Pro mode, where you can literally change configuration of every single little bit. Now, LAN port. This is where it gets fun. So you have your general LAN, DHCP, routing, and so on. But one of the things you have at the end here is VLANs. It is actually kind of impressive for a more prosumer device to have ability to set up VLANs. So if you go to profiles, I've already created VLAN 10. So you can actually create a bunch of VLANs and then allocate them specifically to the LAN ports. So I've created VLAN 10. So if you go back to LAN, and let's say I want my LAN 2 port to be not just normal default port, but I want it to become access port. And you can select, I want it to be on VLAN 10 and apply. And what that will do is moving forward, the traffic will actually be tagged with VLAN 10. What's cool about this is you can actually utilize your router, which is not really an enterprise router, which is really designed for this, but it already has the functionality that most prosumers, like, well, myself in particular, are requiring in terms of managing and separating my network. Therefore, I can break it down in VLANs rather than having separate SSIDs to kind of segment the network and protect my devices and segregate them in between different areas. I feel that's really, really powerful for a device of this caliber to have that ability. Something to note, once you do that, it actually does disconnect you from the wireless. So you kind of need to kind of refresh and log back in, and it can be a little bit tricky. But if you had it wired in, you would probably not have this problem. And that's mostly because when you apply changes as drastic as VLANs to the router, it needs to restart its network card to apply those features, and therefore you just need to reconnect. But to summarize, I'm actually kind of impressed with a device like this. Yes, it is very expensive, but the amount of features you receive is way beyond any of the other prosumer devices that we've seen up to this point. As far as the routers are concerned, you might be better off getting something cheaper and more focused as a router only. But here you get a router as well as a device that can have hosting for your Docker containers and even has some more prosumer slash enterprise features like VLANs. Overall, I feel that Asus has kind of done a good job on adding more value to a what looks like a kind of a boring device lineup. What do you guys think? Is this something you'd consider getting moving forward, or is this a bit too much fluff? Let us know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more. We'll see you guys in the next one.